What's up, guys? My name is Crescent, and I was just thinking about how many world changing events that I've lived through and personally witnessed. Events that people of future generations would only read about in history books. And it's actually fascinating yet concerning at the same time. I can remember watching the Challenger explode on live TV with my classmates, as well as the Berlin Wall get torn down, although I don't quite remember seeing David Hasselhoff performing. Maybe I just got lucky. There was the dot-com bubble in the late 90s, the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 and '08, and today, the market crash due to the global COVID-19 pandemic. Because I was old enough to have already started my first business during the dot-com bubble, and I also endured the mortgage crisis, I want to talk about the effects of the current economic climate, but more specifically, how it affects selling on Amazon and what I think the 5 major problems are that you need to be aware of when starting your Amazon business during these times. But first, I want to talk about how the pandemic has had a positive effect on Amazon or e-commerce in general. Everyone has had to figure out how to live their new lives in isolation. And part of that is buying products online. Online sales surged in 2020, where Amazon sales alone soared 84%, and e-commerce as a whole grew by 44%. So if you're wondering if right now is a good time to start selling on Amazon, the answer is a resounding yes. There hasn't been a better time. But because of the huge surge in popularity of online sales, coupled with the pandemic and the lack of preparedness, it's brought about massive delays in the entire supply chain, from manufacturing to import and exports, customs, and Amazon processing times. Just like all the people locked down at home, workers at the factory and ports are also unable to work, creating backups in the manufacturing and shipping process. Social distancing also creates problems with the ability to perform tasks quickly and efficiently. Shipments are being held up at customs, and inbound shipments to Amazon fulfillment centers are taking far longer than usual to process. I see posts in my Facebook group almost daily where people are dealing with delays and their supplier, freight forwarder, customs, or Amazon. I completely understand their frustration, but it's really not anyone in particular's fault. Everyone is kind of at the mercy of the current pandemic, and the situation is created in their country or governing bodies. So, my best advice here is to manage your expectations, practice patience, try to plan well ahead, and expect delays. And this problem leads to the next, and that's the like button needs to be smashed. So, turn that button blue for the YouTube algorithm. I'd really appreciate it. And what we don't appreciate is the increased costs due to the fundamental law of supply and demand. More and more people are jumping on board the e-commerce wagon, increasing the demand on manufacturers and shipping, but the supply just isn't able to keep up, so it's driving up the costs. Exports from China surged 21% last year, but because of the pandemic, there's actually a lack of containers to keep up with all the demand. Rates from China to the West Coast ports increased a whopping 259% compared to 2019, while rates to the East Coast are up 119%. Amazon usually announces annual fee adjustments at the end of the year too, but they decided to hold off on the fee increases and instead invest over $10 billion in improving their infrastructure and hiring over 400,000 employees just to keep up with the surge and absorb these additional costs. But that doesn't mean the fee adjustments aren't coming. They've decided to hold off until June 1st of this year, 2021, so we can expect to see an increase in fulfillment and storage fees around that time this year. That's why it's even more important in this climate to make sure you're finding viable products and adding value so that the profit margins are high enough to absorb these increases in fees and manufacturing and shipping costs. Selling products where the margins are so thin is far too risky, especially if you're competing solely on price. That just isn't a smart move. Now, if you didn't already know, Amazon imposed a 200 unit storage limit for all new ASINs last year. I'm sure this change was inevitable, But the pandemic just moved that timeline up much sooner. That means all new products can only store a maximum of 200 units at any time in the fulfillment centers. This creates a problem when you have more than 200 units on hand and can put you behind the eight ball during the product launch when it's crucial not to run out of inventory. This is where strategic planning will play out in spades, so make sure you have a plan on where you're going to store your extra units and how you're going to ship them into Amazon as you sell your inventory. I have a video that goes into detail on the different options and solutions you can take in another video, which I'll leave a link to in the video description below. And if you haven't already guessed, due to the surge in online sales, you would be right to assume that competition has also gone up in the e-commerce space. Now, don't get me wrong though, that doesn't mean it's not a good time to start an online business. It just means you need to be aware of the situation and the market you're entering. There's still tons of opportunity to make a killing online, especially on Amazon. You just have to do your due diligence. I see a lot of newcomers complain that they can't find any viable products to sell on Amazon and that it's saturated and too competitive now. In my opinion, these people are destined to fail no matter what business they get into, and they would have said the same thing pre-pandemic. What I suggest doing in this climate is look for higher ticket items, products that are selling around the $30 to $50 range and up. Beginners are mostly looking at the cheaper items like $25 and under because they have smaller budgets or they're afraid to invest in the higher priced products. And in my opinion, there's far less competition with the higher ticket products and the profit margins are usually a lot higher. And with the 200 unit storage limit, the upfront costs aren't much more than if you stuck with the lower priced items. So remember, you have to think outside the box. Following the herd won't lead you anywhere. And this leads us to the number 5 problem. People trying to capitalize on COVID-related products. Now, I've always stated emphatically to stay away from fads and trends. You will almost always get screwed because you'll be too late to the game. This was true with the solar eclipse sunglasses and the fidget spinners hype. And today, trying to sell COVID-related items is a path to failure. First, Amazon has restrictions on most COVID-related products like face masks, gloves, and sanitizer. You can't sell them, period, or you need to have permission. Products that aren't restricted are way too competitive and, in my opinion, have a very short and limited life cycle. Once this pandemic is over in the next few months or a year, these products are dead. Products like contactless keychains, non-medical grade masks, mask lanyards, signs, and anything else tied to the pandemic. There's no money there to be made as the margins are so thin, so stay away from them. You've been warned. Find evergreen products. Products that people will use every day and will continue to use well past this temporary period that we're all living through. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can find all of my contact details in the video description below. I'd love to hear from you, so leave a comment or question in the comment section below. I answer every single one. And as always, if you found value in this video, consider subscribing. And do me a favor, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really does help me out and I'd appreciate it. And make sure you ring that bell so you never miss a future video. All right, thanks for watching.